I'm 59, lived a long life, made some really poor decisions, made some great decisions. But one thing I've learned along the way is a lot of people feel that persuasion and being able to be heard and not be invisible is all about the verbs you use, the language that you use. And we just talked about that a lot with the noun and verb. But the reality is, it's your presence.
Welcome to Give a Heck. I am your host, Dwight Heck, and for much of my life, lived my life in quiet desperation, wondering how I was going to pay the bills, take vacations, save for retirement, and one day wondering if I would get off the hamster wheel of life and have purpose. A life that most of society lives, which takes us to work, then home, then repeat, and pays us hopefully enough just to survive. The harsh truth that most live with more months than money and have no idea how to live life on purpose, not by accident. This ensures the mass majority are living not just financially broke, however emotionally and mentally as well due to financial pressures. In each episode, I will introduce you to thoughts, ideas, and guests that can help you to learn how you too can live life on purpose, not by accident.
Welcome back to the Give a Heck podcast. I'm your host, Dwight Heck, here to help you live life on purpose, not by accident. Each week, we dive into real stories, real truths, and powerful conversations that challenge you to give a heck about your life and the life of others. Today's guest is someone whose voice and vision has already graced our podcast, making a lasting impact on my show. Jake has first joined us in episode 175 as a pioneer in conversational dynamics and a highly regarded fractional chief learning officer. He shared his adaptive conversational blueprint, a framework that transforms sales professionals into relational architects capable of forging profound connections with prospects. His 2 in 10 rule challenged traditional views of conversation by emphasizing rhythm and cadence. With over 30 years of experience across 6 countries and more than 10,000 individuals trained, Jake brought a blend of practical wisdom and personal insight grounded in his role as a devoted father, husband, and so much more. Jake returns with something deeply personal and transformative. Own the Room, How to Communicate, to be Seen, Heard, and Respected is his first book, and it marks a major milestone in his mission to help others lead with clarity and connect with confidence. Whether you're leading a team, coaching clients, or trying to be heard in your own life, this book offers tools you can use the moment this episode ends. Jake is the creator of NeuroStrategy, CEO of Orchestrate, and a gold winner for International Training Excellence. With 7 patents in sales and performance technology, he has trained leaders across 47 states and 6 countries. Jake, welcome back to Give a Heck. I'm excited to dive into your latest work and the evolution of your continuing mission.
Wow, Dwight, thank you for that introduction. I think I owe you like $100 for that.
For every word?
Oh no,
Oh,
total, total.
I was getting excited for a second. It was like, wow, I love you, Jake. That's what I was thinking. My heart was just going, oh, Jake.
Jake, you're so wonderful.
Yeah, you know what? Just think about all the words that we've said in just this prior conversation on the podcast, and now what we'll say today. We got paid a penny for every word. That would still
Yeah,
be enough for a cup of coffee.
yeah. So maybe we ought to raise it to a nickel for every word.
Okay, I like dimes better.
All right, I'm open to that.
Anyway, I appreciate coming back on, brother. Listeners, viewers to the show. Again, Jake was on in episode 175. If you want to dial back to that episode, which I hope you do, to learn his origin, we're not going to get into that today, unless Jake wants to bring up some stuff just as a reminder, which is fine. We're going to dive into where he's gone right? We know where he's been. You can go back to that episode, but where has he gone? And where is he continuing to elevate and climb in his life and make a difference in people's lives and actually give a heck about them, right? There's so many people that I've had on my show, for an example, Jake, that I never hear from again. And I reach out to them and say, a lot of people that I like, I'll tell them at the end of the show, hey, something changes, get a hold of me. And very few do. And I always wonder, was it the show? Did it not click for them? Or did they fall apart? Are they like a lot of people? They're like a puff of smoke and it's just gone. Weren't able to hang on. And I always wonder, so it was so refreshing to get your communication, your email, talking about the show and your experiences and wanting to know if I could have you back on. Well, I've got a list of people that are scheduled, and I made concessions, and I'm not saying that to pat myself in the back. I made a concession because those that are willing to be the squeaky wheel deserve the oil,
Well, thank you. I squeak a lot, and I got
right?
to admit, I haven't always gotten oil for
Yeah.
it.
But you know what I'm getting at? It's just it's so
Yeah.
refreshing when somebody's confident in what they do, and that I know from now you're going to be episode 270. You were on a 175, right? Talk
Wow.
about so your evolution, you've evolved, and that excites me, right? It does. It really does excite me that you continue to climb and evolve to do more good things in that period of time, right? And it just, a year and 3 quarters or whatever, a long time ago, that you were on the show, you literally haven't given up. And then you wanted to make sure that your message is delivered in a way that can continue to evolve your business for your clients and everything. And that's commendable. And not enough people get told, thank you for continuing on in the journey. And you're proof of that. And of course, I want to have somebody like you back on. Your original story and life is very compelling to help people give a heck. And I imagine this next conversation is even going to be better. I'm excited to dive into it. So, enough of me ranting and raving, and I'll get off my soapbox and we'll get to some better conversation possibly. I think it will be perfect. But I'm a smart aleck, smart ass, whatever you want to call me. People that listen and watch know that, and I think I told you, maybe told you that. I always told my dad I'd never be a dumbass, and he said thank you. So there you
So
go.
you turn to a smartass.
Right? Isn't that? Wouldn't you rather have that? Right?
Yes, much rather. Absolutely.
When most of our population is just dumbassery, I just think, yeah, I'll be smart. I'll be a smarty pants.
Ooh, dumbassery. I haven't heard that one yet. That's got legs. I may use that.
Go right ahead. So, Jake, just a simple question. Since your last appearance, how has your perspective on communication and leadership evolved? What has been some epiphanies or things that have happened to you since we last communicated?
You know, one of the funniest things I think is, Dwight, is I've worked with so many people over the years and since we last talked. And we get in the habit of telling our kids, well, you're unique and you're different and you're special. And the reality is, Dwight, they're really not. I mean, they are in the way of who they are individually, but not in the way they process information. They respond to fear in the same way, they respond to joy in the same way. There's a lot of similarities we all have. So I started putting together all of this into a what I call neurostrategy. It's combining behavioral psychology, social psychology, and neurolinguistic programming, which Tony Robbins has made famous worldwide. And I put them into a communication concept that basically says if we all communicate or feel pretty much the same way, are there similarities that we can use in communicating with other people to elicit similar responses? And it has led to some really cool stuff. And none of this is new, Dwight. None of this is new. I just took it and combined several things into one communication method that I've been coaching to corporations and individuals to make the words that they have more impact in a shorter period of time.
Wow. So you've taken what so many companies are utilizing on a social platform basis, they take an algorithm and try to hone it down, and you've taken a bunch of ideas, created your own human algorithm to help people get unstuck so they don't think like the rest of the norm, and they're able to become thought leaders, critical leaders by challenging the fact that they're stuck like everybody else, right? Is that in a nutshell kind of what you're doing?
Yeah, and here's the here's the part that I love to say, but it may generate hate mail. So if we get hate mail, just feel free to forward it to me. The way we have all of our technology right now, Dwight, when it comes to marketing automation and AI and DMs and social media, means that we are communicating poorly at the speed of light. We always say that it takes, you'll never get a second chance to make a first impression. Well, people nowadays, because of everything we have, can make a shitty first impression millions of times over in a very short period of time.
Hmm.
My objective is to get them to make a better first impression millions of times over in a shorter period of time.
Well, how many people don't realize that, who knows what the science is now behind it? I know when I first got into personal development, they said part of me, and I honestly believed it. When you make that first impression, walking in a room, people have all analyzed you, and before you sit down and start talking, they've already made a full-time decision or a partial decision about who you are and what you are by your body language and how you're dressed. And that's impactful in the sense that already, if that's their mindset has done that, even though maybe they haven't done it consciously, it's just the way they've been programmed. They're stuck on a hamster wheel. Now, when you open your mouth, it goes through that filter, that
Yeah,
first
and
impression. So you take that to social media, and now people are reading. They're not hearing you. They're reading you more times than they're hearing you. Even people with videos, people will, I know for a fact, watch with captions. They don't even listen to it, so they don't hear the
yeah,
tonality. And now all of a sudden, they're reading this based on what their 6 inches and if they're how what's their level of stuck. So they're reading that, articulating possibly a response, or possibly their brain is just, whatever. They're going to be a keyboard warrior. There's so many things that cause challenges. So I appreciate the fact that you're taking these different systems and making it into a position of taking all that complexity. Not to say that yours can't be complex. That's not my intention of my message, is that you're taking it and making it so that it's palatable and it's easier to digest, swallow, interpret, whatever. So, and again, nothing against Tony and all this stuff. I've been to one of his events, and it's not for everybody, right?
no, it's not. Yep, yep.
So we need people like you that are willing to step outside of their comfort zone and say, "Hey, I like this." And that's back to what my solo podcast was about this week, crossing the line and buffet thinking. You're a buffet thinker, Jake. And for those that are new to the show, all that means is that Jake went to the buffet table and he liked some Tony Robbins. Maybe he liked Stephen Covey stuff that he's ingested over the years from reading. It doesn't have to always be face-to-face stuff that he's learned. It could be from a book, an audio book, a podcast, whatever. And he went, I really like the helping of that. Oh,
Yeah.
Tony, I only like half a scoop of what you have, buddy. You're just not worth a full scoop of my plate, right? Buffet thinking, you're willing to ingest different things, and you realize as you get farther along and dealing with clients and understanding their needs and your needs as well, that the next time at the buffet, you're leaving Tony behind.
Yeah.
Tony served his purpose. You didn't mind the taste, but now that it's just you don't need to satiate yourself with it, and that's growth. So anyway, get off my soapbox again.
I like when you climb up there. You look good at that height.
Yeah, because it's harder for the reflection off my bald head to blind anybody. I understand that. Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, well, mine's on its way out too, so I get it.
Oh, I think I'm a little bit farther than you. Uh, Quite a bit farther, but that's okay. You're a handsome devil. I'm a handsome devil. We'll just leave it at that.
That sounds good.
So we're gonna let's keep on with the origins and evolution of things that have been conspiring. for the world, not against the world, to make a difference. You're so writing a book is a very revealing process, and people don't give it enough weight.
Yeah.
And part of that is due to ignorance. It's not stupidity. They don't know. I didn't know. I didn't know what I was going to go through emotionally. I didn't know how it was going to feel, what it was going to do for my life. Was there something you now see more clearly that you once could not because of writing that book?
Yeah, as part of the book, Dwight, I revealed a little bit about my background that a lot of my listeners know already, but the people who know me professionally don't know. And reading the book, they're going to get that little piece of information. I was addicted to opioids for about 2.5 years. And I went through a process where I lost everything, lost my wife, my house, the whole 9 yards. That was 13 years ago. I've been clean for 13 years. But writing about that a little bit in the preface, because that was really the foundation for me writing this book and creating this communication method, was going through that. Yeah, there were a lot of tear jerking and reflective moments doing it. And I started to do an audiobook for it. And when I was reading the section that I wrote on that, it's like I just kept getting choked up. So it's nice to remind yourself where you started from and how far you've come in the process. So that was a big thing for me with the book was just kind of revisiting why I started this journey in the first place.
Which is, and that's exactly what I was looking to hear. It's the self-discovery process and the emotions that come around from it, or impact, not even come around slowly. They can just be really impactful. I can remember
Yeah.
editing my own book and getting so emotional because there was things in there that were very sensitive that was hard enough to write about, let alone
Yeah.
read it back and try reading it
Hmm.
out loud. It was, it's something people that are listening or watching, if you want to write a book, I encourage it. But one thing I will tell you, you have to have your emotional stuff in check. Doesn't mean you can't be an emotional person, that you can't have your value to spare and your days of highs or all of it in one day, right? It can happen. You need to just realize that writing a book is something that if you're vulnerable enough is going to open up and decompartmentalize stuff that you've shoved back into your brain that you thought you've dealt with. And
Yeah.
even if you have dealt with something, it doesn't mean that that wound won't become fresh again. So I loved writing my book. I have absolutely zero regrets. It's created so many good conversations. It's helped out, maybe one or two people, hopefully, that have reached out to me that's that social proof,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
But I don't
Yeah.
care. I used to care, Jake. And the only reason I bring this up to you is I used to care. Are they going to comment? I've sold this many books. Why do I only got 30 reviews? You know, I used to care. Just like my podcast, I used to care. I love the reviews. Don't get me wrong. People keep on doing them, right? I really appreciate it. Back to that algorithm thing. The algorithm loves it when people, put praise on Jake and myself for our
Yeah.
books
Yep.
or our podcasts. But at the end of the day, just if you write the book, do it for the right reasons. Don't be that person. I've known so many authors, even authors that have been on my show, Jake, that just didn't really do it for the right intent and right reason. And some of those people, I don't even know if they exist anymore. And they might still be alive. That's not what I mean, but they don't exist in the sphere of that I hear or see anything from them.
Yeah.
Your intention always has to be pure, is my point. So, and I know it would be for you. Um, the sensitivity of you saying you're doing the audio and reading and how it caught you, and made you very
Yeah.
emotional. You know what? That just says something. It says you're human, brother.
Oh,
That
yeah.
you, right? You're human and you're willing to tap into your emotions. Vulnerability is a secret weapon to ensuring people get help and support because they always want to know that they're heard, but they want to know that they're heard by somebody that can empathize. And
Yeah.
empathy is something that is so short and lacking in our society. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's funny you say I was talking to a guy earlier today that he was saying the same thing. He said empathy just is in very, very short supply.
Do you believe empathy can be taught?
I think that goes down a couple of rabbit holes. I think there's
That's
certain
okay.
people that can be taught it, but I think you need to want to learn it. And you need to understand the difference between sympathy and empathy. And I also think, Dwight, that there's a certain chemical makeup that just isn't well tuned to empathy. They say certain people just don't have the empathetic response or don't have the ability. But I think for the most part, you can learn empathy as long as you can set your ego at the door and you don't mind listening and you don't mind not being the center of attention. If you can get past those three things, I think you find your entire communication world just breaks wide open because people are going to want to talk to you more.
Yeah, I love what you had to say there. That was just very impactful. Um, if I could, I'd rewind it, listen to it again. Listeners, I would. You got to realize that we have a society that has so much learned behavior that that person may not have that ability, but most people do. It's untapped. Learned behavior has squelched it, and it needs to be opened up. It needs to be flourished and watered to grow. I did not realize, Jake, I don't know, I can't remember everything I've told people in 270 episodes. But I never realized how much of an empath I am until had a lady, she's been on twice. I actually want to have her on again in the next few months. She's an empath coach. I met her at a conference that I was speaking at. She was one of the attendees, and she come up and talked to me, went through an exercise, and I realized that I had always been an empathetic, kind person, but I didn't always do it in the right way or the right place or the right time, or I didn't understand the confusing emotions that came around with it, especially being a single dad of five kids, four being girls, right? Just to remind you. And so it was so refreshing to understand and have somebody work on that with me, be on my podcast twice. Because again, I'm the biggest student of my own show. I bring on people that are impactful, that are going to uplift me. Because if I'm uplifted, my tribe of people that like me and my show, they're going to be uplifted. Are they
Yeah,
always uplifted? That's not realistic. But I'm always trying to be the best version of myself. I didn't realize how much empathy, and this was 5 years ago when it really impacted me to realize how much empathy I was lacking because of learned behavior. But it was also hurting me too, if that makes sense, Jake. That empathy was locked inside, wanting to get out. Learned behavior was holding it back, if that makes
yeah.
sense.
It makes
So
perfect sense.
you talk about the why. You have to be the why to want
Yeah,
to change. And sometimes it can take a tragedy to cause that. For me, the biggest was me losing my granddaughter in 2017. That was the start of the catalyst. And I've been a life coach for how many years prior to that? Just because we coach on something doesn't mean we can't continue to evolve, that we shouldn't be coached and grow, right?
for sure. Hey, every coach needs a coach as far as I'm concerned.
And good friends. Like I
Yeah,
love to, I remember our conversation. It's coming back to me in floods and waves of emotion and memories, in a good way, obviously. And that's a great thing that we can have these open conversations. I can feel your intention. I really can. I can see it, obviously. But at the end of the day, we need to support one another. We need to have that village of people that are like-minded, that even in 6 years from now, 6 months from now, you'd say, hey, I just, I'm starting to do this. Can we talk about it? Oh, sure, brother, let's go. Because guess
yeah,
what? You're helping me elevate,
yeah.
right?
Yep.
You got to always make it about taking care of us so we can take care of others, right? So I appreciate you being on, brother.
Thanks for having
So
me.
absolutely. So you talked about things that you discovered about yourself in that
Hmm.
process. And since we last talked, what did you learn about your audience or the people that you communicate with, or maybe the nonverbal communication? Have you learned anything more about the people and community that you've been working on to support?
Yeah, I've learned a lot in that people are really kind of stuck. We get stuck into these ruts of this is what everybody tells me to do, and this is what I've heard to do. But it's amazing. One thing I found is some of the things that I put out in the book are a little maybe on the edge, things that people may not have thought about before. And when I put it out, I was afraid it was not going to be accepted for what it was, that people were going to look at it and go, that sounds hard, or oh, that's difficult. But what I found was that the people who read the book first, and some of them were kind enough to give advance praise, were very receptive. Almost, Dwight, too much so, if that makes
Hmm.
sense. So they came back with such good praise. I'm sitting there thinking, that can't be right. They couldn't have liked it that much. It's my first book. How much could you like it? So it was, I think, I was surprised that people took a concept I gave and adopted it so quickly. But I also learned about me that I probably had doubts about my own ability and it made it difficult to accept positive feedback.
How did you
So,
get past that imposter syndrome? Because that's what that is.
yeah, of course. Sometimes you just take a deep breath and accept it for what it is. One thing that I like to do is just ask, why shouldn't you get it? Why shouldn't I get the good praise? Maybe it is that good. But in the environment I was raised in as a kid, there was always something where the compliment always had some hidden meaning or
It
had
had a
some
hook. It had a
alternate
hook at a
version.
hook at the end. A hook at
Right,
the end, right?
exactly. Exactly. So as an adult, when you're geared towards expecting that and you get something completely different, it definitely hits as a shock. So I don't know if it's imposter syndrome so much as that I was so pleasantly surprised at the feedback that it almost makes you suspicious. It's like, it couldn't have been that good. Give
Oh,
me
okay.
some kind of feedback that shows how I can improve. But yeah,
I
so I was
appreciate that.
really thrilled at the advanced praise and how well things went.
I appreciate you explaining it. So yeah, you're right. It wouldn't be imposter syndrome unless it was consistently happening in your life. We won't get into the definition or explanation of it, but I like how you explained the fact that you were shocked by it.
Yeah, it
Probably.
was overwhelming.
So when you're shocked by something like that, it's because we haven't had it happen enough, though,
Correct.
right?
Yep. Or when
So
it has happened to you, it had some sort of condition to it, right?
yeah,
And
that
these
that
were,
hook, that that
yeah,
that conditional
exactly.
hook,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm glad like people are listening. When you get a chance, jump on YouTube and watch this. Jake's energy and smile through this whole time why do I bring that up, Jake? Is because we are visual creatures, and I want to make
Yeah.
sure that people listening understand that there's joy in your explanations. Even when you were talking about that, reading that chapter, I could see that emotional change in your face and stuff, but yet there's
Yeah.
still joy behind that. And so we can have our own hooks that drag us back, and we can have other people that compliment us. They'll say, "Oh, you did this really good, but however," right? They got that conditional hook.
Yeah.
And that's what I meant by imposter syndrome, because all of a sudden, am I that, like you mentioned it too, though? Why would they buy this is my first book? Why would they say that stuff?
Yeah.
Right? It's because we're a society that does not give, and I'm going to preface this with a word, genuine compliments and genuine appreciation for
Yeah.
people,
For sure.
and tell them on the fly. I'll tell you, people that are listening or watching, if you do it, it becomes a habit. It becomes a muscle, but you also have to put a hook, a condition on that muscle that it's always genuine. Never
Yeah.
give compliments just because you get that dopamine hit because that person goes, "Oh, thanks." Yet your phony is beep, 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 right? Don't be that person. Be
Yeah.
genuine, right? And Jake's the prime example of what, and I can say that happened to me too. Was like, what? Hours of my book going on sale, becoming and then getting a message from the publisher, "Oh, you've hit bestseller in these categories," and I'm going, "What? This is my first." I had the same sort
Yeah.
of, for me, that was
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. Like, really? I thought I'd get, it would be like a little sparkler going off, a little bit of light. Oh yeah, this is so
Yeah. Yeah. You
awesome.
wrote a book. Goody for you.
Yeah, yeah, goody for me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had a hard time with it. I think the hardest thing for me, and then we'll get move on, was having my own father post saying he was proud of me and doing
Wow.
this and realizing that that
That's
generation from the
huge.
40s, I'd never ever seen it in print, let alone, I never ever heard it, let
Yeah.
alone seen it in print.
Yeah. That's big.
That is when my imposter syndrome or my going that confusion of like why did melted away,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right? It
can understand that.
really did because I always
Yeah.
wanted, even though I knew and I always have known he's still alive, to that he appreciates me and that he's proud of me. I always heard it from everybody else.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I do. 100%.
So we have those. Congrats again. Like I can't wait for it to come out. I believe it comes out on the
Thank you.
27th.
Yeah. It's
27th.
actually, I pushed it to December 3rd. So it'll be out on
Oh,
December 3rd.
okay.
Yep.
Good. Thank you,
Yeah.
listeners and people watching. I'll make sure because I bumped some other things so that your podcast goes live next week. So
That's very kind of you.
uh,
Thank you.
that'll be whatever the Tuesday is. I don't know, dude. Like I really am. I really can appreciate what you bring to the table for people, and that you're willing to put yourself out there to criticism, praise, because you can't have one emotion without the other. Just like
Yeah.
people saying, I want to be happy all the time. No, you don't. If you don't
No.
understand sadness, how are you going to understand happiness? Right?
Yeah.
There has
Yeah.
to
You
be,
need both sides of the coin.
we need people like yourself. So, I appreciate you reaching out. But I tell this, I don't know, maybe back then I didn't, but I tell people all the time, the guests that come to me from the different services or just outreach like this second communication with us, I believe that's divine intervention. I believe we
Yeah.
pray, God, bring me people to change me, blah, blah, blah. And then people come to us and we're going, what? And then hours later, God, bring somebody to say, oh, how many people do I have to send to you? You're still, you drowned anyway. And that's in reference to a story about that, right? No direct intervention. He
Yeah.
brings us foot soldiers, compassionate foot soldiers that can make a difference in our daily lives. We just have to be attuned and get past that negativity that society has given us that'll say, what's in it for, why does Jake want this? What's in it for me?
Yeah.
Right? What's Jake? Oh, I don't want Jake to benefit being on my show. I don't want Jake to benefit by me buying his book, right? I want him to stay stuck just like me. And there's people probably listening to this that this conversation is making them uncomfortable. I hope it is. Harsh, right?
Yeah.
I'm not looking to have minions. I'm looking to have the willing. I want people that are going to spread the news, right? I'm not no
Yep.
preacher. You're not no preacher. We just want people to spread the news that there's possibilities and that there's, everything's achievable with some effort and good coaching, as we talked about.
Yeah.
So we're going to continue on, or this will be like a 6 hour conversation. I haven't even gotten through a half dozen of the points that I was really wanting to discuss to ensure that we, get the best value of your time.
Yeah,
So
sure.
was there specific things and discoveries too, like, and this is getting into the more the nitty gritty of the development of the book, or things that you maybe did? Was there certain things that you discovered that influenced the way you even structured your book, or tools that you included? Was there, like, as you were going through that phase, did you go, oh, I should have put this in. Did I put that in? And what did those discoveries teach you? Like, where did they come about? Were they conversations in the development process with people, or here, read this chapter? Or were you a person that read it out loud and your brain went, hey, right? Could you share some of that
Yeah,
process in your mind?
it's probably a little bit of all of it. The book is
Good,
the
good.
book is boiled down to an acronym which is called STRATA, and I'm sure we'll get into that later, so I won't get into it now. But so each of the bullets, when I wrote it initially, when I wrote the first draft of it, and then I read back through it, I was really dissatisfied because I'm like, oh, I should have really covered this, and I really should have covered that. And then when I rewrote a chapter, I read through it, and it's like, boy, I should really cover this too, and I should really cover that too. And it took me like three rewrites of a chapter before I realized I should have a structure. I should say what it is and how to do it and what happens if you don't do it and why it's so important, and then give a story. So it took me a number of writings of a chapter before I decided, okay, you need to have stories to back it up. You need to tell them how to do it. You need to tell them why it's important. But it was a while until I developed a structure that I could follow in each chapter. And then I got to the point where each chapter was so structured, it didn't look any different than the chapter before. So there was a lot that went through it, that by the time I got my first manuscript done, I realized that I loved the book, but if I reread it, I was going to make a dozen more changes. So I had to get an editor that said, Jake, okay, you're done. You got to stop. And he gave me bullet points and feedback, but I had to have an editor that basically said, you have to stop here. You got to finish. And then even after that, I thought, I'm not doing anybody a service if I don't give them worksheets and exercises to do to get better at this. So I did that. And even though I centered this book about business, I thought, wow, I should put in a personal example. And it just kept growing chapter by chapter. So finally, Dwight, I sent it to the publisher. I'm like, this is it. I'm done. I finished it. I'm good. Now we can edit it, or you can give me feedback or whatever needs to be done. So I sent it in and I went on vacation with my wife to Sedona. Well, we're sitting in Sedona and something happened that was so applicable to the book that I had to write about it. So I wrote this bonus chapter and I sent it to my editor, and the subject line of the email was, please don't hate me. But here's another chapter that I'd like to add into the book. So it felt like it was going to be a never-ending story until I
Oh,
got it
geez.
done.
I
But
get it.
it was phenomenal. I mean, I the process was great. If somebody's going to write a book, just know it's a labor of love. There's very little reward in just writing
Oh,
it.
I get people saying, "Oh, you must make a fortune," but no, you don't. An
Yeah,
average, if you go and do the research, an average author that posts a book, whether it's self-published, using an agency, or using an actual publishing house, they're lucky if 5,000 books are sold,
yeah,
right? I know
yeah,
people that have had books out that are just reaching 10,000 in sales, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. They're going, oh, we thought it would sell more. 10,000 books, even if you take 10%, maybe 1%, you've
yeah,
affected 100 people. Like, honestly, good for
yeah,
you. And I'm clapping them, and they're going, oh, I never thought about that.
yeah,
You're looking, why are you doing this book? Are you doing it for the right intentions? And I, dealing with my editor, it was kind of cool. I had two. The first one was, politely, I said, you got to fire that person from doing my book. I don't like them. Right. And I got a different person, and they were great. And they said, okay, you're getting into your head again. Like, you edited this chapter, or here's you give us this chapter changes. You cut out, you gutted half of the chapter and you changed it again. What are you
yeah,
doing? And we need to dumb this down to grade 8. Why? Because majority of the people reading it, it's not that they're intellectually not smart. Their reading comprehension is lower depending on where they're living and where they're from. And I was like, oh,
yeah,
I never
for
thought about
sure.
that. Oh yeah, I
Yeah,
was like, these are all the things they're sharing with me. And
yeah,
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 it was quite the process, right?
it
It
is.
was cathartic, and I thought about adding more stuff. I even thought about issuing my book again and putting bonus chapters, or say, adding extra things and saying, whatever they put on books when they reissue and stuff. And nah, if I'm gonna rewrite it, I'm gonna, pardon me, if I'm gonna add stuff, it's gonna be a continuation in another book, whether it's
Yeah,
half the pages or double the pages or whatever. I'm not gonna mess with what, you know, was put out, right? And I'm pointing over my shoulder for those people
yeah, I see
watching
it.
my book. Well, that's what my publisher couriered me from the US, right? He's located in Pittsburgh. He sent that to me when, showing that I'd become a bestseller, and it was just, I put it there not to brag to anybody. It's a constant reminder for me and anybody that knows me that you can give a heck. You could do
Yeah.
something you dreamt about since you were a child. It wasn't, I didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to write a book. I've been thinking about it since I was a kid. I always thought I'd be a child author, and I still want to be
Yeah.
writing kids' books because kids are my world, right? My adult kids, my grandkids. But I appreciate this raw, honest conversation though about the book process. And we're going to continue to evolve this conversation. But thank you so far for what you're sharing. I really appreciate it,
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah. One other thing I'd like to add before we move on,
Sure.
Dwight,
Yeah.
is
Go.
the details of the book are staggering. Getting a Library of Congress number, getting ISBNs, getting the barcodes, designing the cover, designing the back cover, getting advanced praise, trying to find somebody to write the foreword. And then you're going through that whole process. Then to get on Amazon, you got to get a KDP login. Then to get the book physically done, you have to get an Ingram Spark
Oh.
login. And,
Oh, I did it.
every
I know.
every
I
time I
went.
think this process is done, my editor's like, "Did you do this yet? Did you get that number yet? Did you do this?" It's like, oh my God. So it's funny because my bookshelves are loaded with books.
Yeah.
And you read it and you don't give a lot of thought to it. And then when you do your own book, you're like, good God, is this really what it takes every single book? It's just, like I said, labor of love, lot of minutia. You gotta want it.
Oh, your heart has to be in the right place.
Yeah, it
And I
really
and
does.
I've had people on my show that are specifically people like more than one, including my own publisher I had on. Um, and literally, when they talk about it, people do things to keep up with their neighbors, to keep up with the Joneses, the Smiths, the family. So if they're in their circle of friends and everybody's writing a book, all of a sudden they got to write a book, and it's not for the right reason.
Yeah,
It is a labor of love. I love how you put that. It is so
yeah.
true. Having to worry about, like, at one point in time, I had we narrowed it down to 38 different book covers. And then
It's a
and then
long
oh,
process.
and then overthinking it,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yep.
he's got a graphic team that, oh my gosh, the stuff they sent me, Jake, was just like, oh, I like this. And then I started posting stuff, or I started showing people in my circle that are local in my community and family, and that, what do you think of this? Oh, I like this one. I like
Yeah.
this one. I like this. Do you know what, the cover that I finally picked, where the man's walking up the stairs, right, going into a keyhole into the clouds? That I picked, and then we massaged it. I said, and even them were saying, "Oh, this one's better," where it looks like the page is ripped, and because you're ripping that's your impression.
I know.
I
I
am
know.
wanting people to elevate and climb. I talk about that all the time. What better than this cover? And even then, right to the final, are you sure that's the one you want? Yep, that's what I want. That's what I'm
Yeah.
sticking with. And I've had people tell me even after the fact, you could have done it, should have been a different cover. I like the book, but
Uh,
you could have. I'm not trying to please the masses. I need to like
right.
what I see over my shoulder, right? I need to
Yeah.
like what I see. And then those that are part of my circle, they might have, oh, a neat cover, or they might have oh, maybe this book cover, and that's fine. It depends how delivery is a big thing too, right?
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
know an author, people, pat him on the back because everything Jake said is a reality.
Yeah.
All those numbers, all the formatting, you have to be within a millimeter of this and
Oh,
that. And
yeah.
oh my
And the
gosh,
ebook
it
has
was,
to be formatted different than the printed book. And
oh yeah.
then you have to decide the categories it goes into on Amazon. And oh my God, it's
And if
just,
you pick the wrong categories, you're in
yeah.
oblivion. You can
Yeah.
literally see
You're
you can
done.
you're absolutely done. All of a sudden you
Yeah.
look down at the bottom of where your book is, and now you're number 250,000 out of a million in that category. You just became a mosquito fart like that, right?
Yeah.
And that's not bad, but if you really want to have some success, even a minutia of success, you need to understand the processes. So, and I know people that
Yeah.
have done all of it themselves without an editor, and and I don't know how they do it.
Yeah. I don't either. Yeah. It's crazy. It was funny. I was on with my editor until late yesterday, trying to get some, trying to figure out keywords, short tail keywords, long tail keywords. Then how do you build those into the description? How do you pull the same keywords into the author bio? It's like, man, it's a science. There is just an absolute science.
SEO and keywords is something I've been working on for a while because I'm a wordsmith normally in life, but then you get into the digital world, and even then there's no perfect science. You could even use there's AI generators, you can use keywords, you can use all
Yep.
these things, and it'll say, well, this is how many times this happens with this keyword and blah blah blah. The algorithms still control it all,
I
right? It
know.
doesn't
I know.
all we're doing, you and I, is trying to give us ourselves a better shot for those
Yeah.
listening by condition putting conditioned words in that might become part of a Google search, and Google will say, oh, out of the trillion different things that use this word, we're going to randomly pick Jake's or Dwight's,
Yeah.
right? Why do
Yeah.
we do that? Because we really care about what we've done to make
Yeah.
sure more people are going to do it. So that's what keywords SEO, for those listening, it's designed to make it so that the search engines themselves, or even the internal searching with inside that social platform, can better find Jake so that his voice can be heard. And that's a
Yeah.
good thing. But just realize, no matter what, and we'll move on from this, writing a book is a labor of love. It takes
Yeah.
effort. Do it for the right reasons. Do it for the right
Yep.
reasons, and it'll be something that you'll treasure till the day you take your last breath, and those around you. And this isn't, I won't talk about this story today, but the stories that I've shared for the podcast that have me on as a guest, the impactful people that have reached out to me from high school all the way up to their 70s has blown my mind, and how it's
Yeah.
changed their lives. And I don't post about that stuff, right? I have the odd time about certain things, but I'm not braggadocious that way, because it's not because I don't believe people need to realize that, because most people are going to read that and say, oh, so this person liked it, blah. What about all the other people? Again, it's about their mental conditioning. So I smile, and I thank them, and I might share it to my group, but otherwise, do it for the right reason,
Yep.
right? So we've, this, you've, from what I was looking at, you've said this book is for people who feel invisible or who
Yep.
struggle to command presence.
Hmm.
What does this mean truly to own the room, and how does someone begin that process?
So, owning the room is not about going in and being the loudest voice or being the most influential or being the smartest. And that's one thing I wanted the book to really kind of break down. I'm a former addict. So people judged me based on a certain image they had of me. And for a long time, I really tried to change their mind. And I realized that there's no changing the mind, there's just changing the way you show up. So the whole book is based on how do you persuade people before you even come into a room? What can you do to get them on your side before you even walk into a room? And then once you walk into that room, how can you be hyper aware of the dynamics that take place? I'll give you a great example. I had a representative that I was coaching one time, and we were in a board meeting. And while he was talking, the CEO that was sitting in the room kept looking down, and then he would look up. And then at one point, he'd start tapping his pencil. And I could tell the CEO was long gone. They were out of the room 5 minutes ago. And the rep kept talking. And when we looked at it later on as kind of a behavioral autopsy, I said, you didn't lose the sale, you lost the moment. You lost the moment when they start tapping their pen and looking down. And Dwight, the easy part of owning a room is acknowledging. Hey, you know what, Dwight? I saw a slight shift there. I saw you look down. What went through your head? So it's catching those moments and allowing them to be kind of the starting point for a further conversation. So owning the room isn't being Mr. Gregarious and super charismatic. Some people I've seen own the room say precious few words, but when they walk in, the entire room shifts. And part of it is following my strata process of how to own a room. And the people I've coached in doing this over the years have really noticed big transformations. But part of it is just noticing the signal. Did they look to the right, to the left? Did they look down? Did they start tapping a pencil? Did their body turn away from you? Just start to notice those signals right away,
I
and
love
you'll
it.
be amazed at how quickly you can recapture attention. So if a person starts to turn away, I may use their name to get them back. Hey, Dwight, saw you shift a little bit. Looked like something might have hit wrong. Help me poke holes in what I'm talking about. All of a sudden, people are re-engaged and they're back with me. So this isn't like this super hard thing to learn. It's just starting to notice. The fact is, 80% of what we communicate is body language. 80%. So, imagine me sending you a video, Dwight. And the video starts with Dwight, I am going to tell you how to make $1 million in the next 30 days. Pay attention. Here we go. Then my video is scrambled for 20 seconds and you can't see or hear a word I say. Then I come back on and say, and Dwight, there you have it. You do that, that $1 million is yours. You've lost 80% of my message. And yet, as humans, we rarely pay attention to body language, which is broadcasting 80% of what they're thinking.
Oh, I love it. You and I are so much attuned with one another. Now I understand why you put in some of the things you did in the email to me, which doesn't matter what it was, our connection, because I am a student of human behavior. I watch people talk. I watch for that lean. I watch for the tenseness in their face, crossed arms, leaning one way, um, eyes rolling around like this as you're talking. It can be in a group. And if as a person that wants to be a thought leader, sharer, you need to be cognizant of that. So I love how you articulated all of that. It is so true, that behavioral moment that can shift to bring you people back. If you're a person,
Yeah,
and we're all salespeople, we're all
of
selling
course.
ourselves, right?
Yeah,
So if you're selling yourself, why wouldn't you want to be straight up with people? I'll say to them, you know what, I just noticed a shift. Or I've even realized, here's Jake, what I do too. Let's say it's something you and I talked about yesterday, and all of a sudden I had an aha moment and thought, oh my gosh, and I'm looking at notes or whatever, or maybe my brain just goes, hey, you never noticed this. Jake did this yesterday and you never acknowledged it. Sometimes it's inappropriate at that moment to acknowledge, but hey, Dwight, reach out to Jake. Hey, Jake, brother, I noticed this yesterday. Or if it's a phone
yeah,
call, text, whatever. Do you have a moment
yeah,
we can chat about it? That if I had anything to do with that, I want to start off by saying, give you a sincere apology. My intent was not to make you feel bad. If it was not me and it was something that I did, that you needed somebody to listen, I'm here for you.
yeah,
And
yep,
stop, and you'll see
yeah,
what happens. You'd be shocked. And sometimes when I'm face to face with people, as you mentioned, they're swaying and you see that behavioral moment and I say something to them, you see it, you see their body go,
yeah,
wow,
yep,
they actually do see and hear me.
yep,
Do you know how many people don't have that? People listening, watching, they don't have somebody that they really feel like they're heard. They go home, they don't think their spouse hears them. They don't think their boss, their kids. They just, and maybe that's not the reality, but their reality is what the reality is, right? And you are the
yep,
person that gives them that opportunity to go and have that pressure relief and go, you know, Jake, this is what I'm going through. Thank you for noticing. Thank you for actually being more of a listener than a responder in your mindset. And you know
yeah.
what I mean by that, right?
I do, of course. Yeah,
Thank you so much. That was great how you shared that. Again, like I said, people would come, things happen for us, not to us, and our relationship is for us, both of us, right? And I appreciate you.
100%.
So if one of the things that most books do, you talked about, you have, obviously it's not released yet, it's going to be released soon. You have worksheets and different things that you've utilized to give them tools. Can you talk about some of these tools and like pick one, pick a few? Obviously, we
Yeah,
can't go through the whole book, but
yeah.
something that would be really impactful that people can have that excitement before they get the book of what they're going to look at and what's going to happen with them.
Yeah, there's a couple of things and we'll focus on one. One of the chapters in the book talks about reframes. And Dwight, I will tell you, after training close to 12,000 people all over the planet, Reframes may be the most underused communication technique we have. And I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody goes to the doctor and the doctor says, "I'm sorry, sir or ma'am, you have X disease and there is a 40% mortality rate," right? That's pretty depressing news. 40% chance of passing away from the disease that you have. But the reframe to that is, so doctor, it sounds to me like what you're saying is, I have a 60% chance of survival. Exact same news, exact same outcome, but it's a different frame of reference. And Dwight, the book talks about how we really all have a frame that we live in. And if we can get someone to reintroduce a different frame, it gives us the permission to expand the way we make a decision. And I'll give you a real life example. My wife is literally the greatest human on the planet, bar none. She's just amazing. And we just moved to a new house, and I really wanted a garage. I'm like, got to get a garage, got to build a garage, find a contractor for a garage. I was really bent on a garage. And she finally said to me, "Jake, what do you want the garage for? We don't park our cars in the garage." And I said, "Babe, this is all about storage. I want to be able to put stuff in a place that I don't have to worry about it." She says, "If all you want is storage, it sounds like what you're looking for is a shed." And I'm like, "Oh, a shed."
I love it.
So we got a custom shed built at a fraction of the price of a garage, and the shed is great. But she didn't manipulate me. She didn't tell me I was wrong. She didn't say a garage is a crappy idea. She reframed the way I was making a decision and merely said, "It sounds like storage is what you want. Isn't a shed then a good option?" So if we did that in our personal lives, helped people see just a slightly different perspective, it's amazing how things can open up for us. And for your audience, we've all gone through that moment where somebody said, "Wow, now that you say it that way, I get it." Or, "Since you put it that way, that makes sense." That was nothing but a reframe. So we spend a full chapter and quite a bit of exercises talking with people about how to do reframes. And then the biggest reframe, Dwight, is our internal reframes. So we say, maybe I'll say to myself, "I'm too old to write a book." Well, the reframe of that is, I'm at the exact right age to take all my previous experience and put it on paper, right? Same sentiment, just a different frame. So my book talks a little bit about how to reframe what other people are thinking, plus how to reframe your own internal dialogue.
How does a person, and this pops into my head because I totally believe in reframing. It drives people crazy in my life, especially those that know me really well. It doesn't anymore. Why do you, what? Because I'll say to them, "Well, so you mean this?" And it's on a positive slant. "Why are you like that, Dad?" Or some of my close friends or colleagues and clients, they're used to it now because I rewired my brain. I had to go through that process where my filter wasn't being like that doctor saying you have 40%. Instead, that doctor could have said, "I have great news for you.
Right. Yeah.
60% of people do this and
Correct.
that." So if
Yeah.
professionals address that, our lives would be so much better. So you and I, as professionals, we have a responsibility to reprogram one person at a time to realize they can reframe their thought process. You
Yeah.
can, like I've had experts on that within the first 45 seconds of a negative thought or somebody introducing it into your mind, or you reading it, or you just thinking it because some external thing triggers it, you can change. You can reframe. Your first emotions aren't anger. Your first emotions are far from it, right? They're
Yeah.
usually sadness or confusion, right? Those are all things that we have and we can realize and go, "Oh, wow." And your brain's 35, 45 seconds into it and you reframe it and go, "Whoa, Why am I looking at it as a negative? What's the positive side of that? And does it always work? Absolutely. You can
Yeah,
be
it does.
reframed. It works 100% of the time when I reframe it. Does it take effort? Yes. Is it worth it? Oh, absolutely. Just like Jake's saying, reframe what is coming into your brain, right? Jake's
Yeah.
proven it can be done. He's writing about it. I'm going to give another push. Go get the book once it comes out because I think you, as a listener or reader, you're worth it. You're worth the elevation in your life, and you're worth learning all those little signals and body languages and how to reframe. You're worth it. I don't care what your age is. If you knew today, Jake, that you had 10 years left in your life, right? I guarantee just getting to know you, you're still going to want to elevate. Oh, 10 years, I
Oh
got 10
yeah.
years left to make a more of an impact, to
Yeah.
create more of my living legacy, to make it so my passing legacy is so much solid because you reframe the fact that it's not a death sentence. It's a life sentence in the sense I know what my defined closing date is. If I know what my defined closing date on the project of Jake and or Dwight, I'm gonna be impactful, man. I got 10 years, and all of a sudden your little time wastes gone. You're gonna be, you know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's absolutely great that you're doing this to teach people how to reframe and being courageous to put it on paper. Number
Thank you.
one thing. You're welcome,
I
brother.
appreciate that.
Right? I have a huge, mad respect for people that are always on the climb. And that doesn't mean that Jake doesn't have hills and valleys. That
Oh
would
my God,
be
yes.
complete BS. But the tools that Jake has and his teaching are lived experiences, right? They're
Yeah.
lived. He lives it. You want a coach, you want a person that has a book, supports you, that can be vulnerable with you and say, hey, the only difference between you and I is here's where I am at the journey and here's where you are. That distance between you and I is my growth period. Now I can share it more. Now I can, understand and empathize and support and lift better than I ever could. Right? That is the best person that I love having on Give a Heck. Right?
Yeah.
And deserve to have a light shined on them. So thanks again for coming on, brother. I got some other questions here.
Yeah,
Obviously,
please.
you talked about, we talk about that hidden signal, right?
Hmm.
That emotion, that behavioral moment, I believe you called it, so we have those and we see that in body language. And I believe in wordsmithing completely, right? That one word can crush somebody or a little phrase and you could say it
Yeah.
differently and the brain interprets it different due to our filters.
Yep.
What are some of the hidden signals that you found, right, in another person's words that we should be more aware of, or and what can we do to utilize, what you're going to tell us to make it more effective so we can be that wordsmith, whether it's technology, reading books, whatever it is, just share your thoughts, please.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things, and I didn't cover this in the book, I've covered in some of the other writing I've done, but one of the biggest things I find fascinating, Dwight, is the difference between a noun and a verb and how dramatically different it can be. And let me give you an example. So somebody says to you, I'm a dog lover, and another person says, I love dogs, right? So now you have a verb and you have a noun. So I'm a dog lover, which is your noun, or I love dogs, which is your verb. Most people will say, I'm a dog lover is more impactful. It's more passionate for the dog. It implies you've loved dogs before you had a dog. You're going to love dogs well after you have a dog. You just love dogs, right? But if somebody just says, I love dogs, it kind of feels temporary. You may not have before, you may not have in the future, but right now you kind of do. So think about that in terms of the way we talk to people. So let's say I say to my son, you don't pick up your room. There's the verb, right? You don't pick up your room. That's a lot different than saying you're a slob, which is a noun. right?
Yeah.
And they've proven this. So they did this in a grade school, in a kindergarten class, and they said to all the kids, clean up your toys. Your teacher needs your help. There's your verb, clean up your toys. They tried another classroom and they said, be the teacher's helper and clean up the room. Now you've given the kids an identity. You've made them a noun. You've given them the identity, a group they belong to, and these kids went home and were excited. Mom, Dad, I'm a helper. I'm the teacher's helper. They become a noun, part of a clan. So they did this with adults. They took a Midwest town that was having very poor voter turnout. And they used to say to them all the time, do your civic duty, come out and vote. So there's your verb. And they changed that to do your civic duty, be a voter, increase turnout by 20% because people became part of a group. Now, if you think about this, lawyers use this really well, but they do it in the opposite direction. Instead of going from a verb to a noun, they go from a noun to a verb. So, Your Honor, my client's not a criminal. They just did a few bad things, right? Noun, back to the verb. So, the thing that staggered me about this, Dwight, is that just by paying attention, I don't like to paint, I'm a painter, right? Huge difference in those two meanings. But just by a simple shift, you change the exact meaning, outcome, and maybe even feeling of the other person just by that simple conversion.
Oh, that trigger. It's amazing how our brains, as complex as they are, it's a giant computer, right?
Yeah,
Doesn't know the difference between a truth and a lie, but our societal growth and how we filter things, and as you mentioned, noun to verb and how lawyers utilize it and how things can change. It's so impactful. And the reason I wanted that to be part of the conversation is people don't realize, and it goes back to the SEO keywords, it goes back to all of that. Words affect the way we interpret, the way we acknowledge, the way we feel, the way we engage. Like you said, 20% more engagement. Why?
yeah,
Words. It's the same thing. It's because our brain doesn't understand it and it has a preconceived notion of how things flow and how it should flow. And people get upset and say, well, when you're using keywords and you're doing that stuff and you're manipulating using words, you're manipulating. I said, yeah, but manipulation isn't bad. Well, yes, it is. How so? Manipulation can be utilized as a negative tool,
yeah,
but manipulation happens every single day in your life. Oh, honey, can you do this for me? I love you. They
right.
preface it with, honey, can you do this for I love you? So that they have that, what do you want now? But oh, they love me.
Yeah,
Our brain
yep,
goes, what? You know what I mean? So we manipulate each other every single day. Positive manipulation to get an outcome that furthers somebody's life is not bad whatsoever. Getting voters out when we get people that are elected into power by very small numbers, which if everybody went and actually did their civic duty, right, on a municipal for provincial slash state for you guys or on a federal level, we'd have way different outcomes because it's the angry and it's the disparaged or whatever however you want to pronounce it. Those are the people that are going to vote. The
yeah,
people that are complacent, they and should be voting are going to be the ones sitting as in their armchair or whatever, complaining when they don't get the results they want, but they didn't participate. There was no participation. There was no participation or in actual work on it. So doing what Jake's talking about takes effort, but man, you will see a change in your life, even dealing with children, like dealing with kids, teachers. The difference between a poor teacher and mediocre teacher and an extraordinary teacher is I find they do what you talked about. They restructure words to make them feel important. And
yeah.
why wouldn't you want to make a child feel important?
Well, and why wouldn't you want to make anybody feel important? So, Dwight, you say you wrote a book. If I turn around and I say, wow, you're a writer, it's like, well, yeah, I guess I am. So it's the same thing, but it's got more potency when you think about whether you're using a verb or a noun. And when you convert that verb to a noun, you give it importance. And when you change that noun to a verb, you take away the importance. So just really cool. Try it in your personal life. It's amazing what a difference it'll make.
Yes. So I have so many other things, but I'm going to just leave the floor to you to discuss your book and whatever you feel is pertinent, because I have multiple questions and it can dissect and pull out things, but I want to give you, the soapbox. Get up
Oh,
and talk to the listeners, the viewers about what they are going to experience from start to finish, right? What you
hmm.
believe, obviously, that's your what you're presenting, but what your intent was and some of the steps along the way. Maybe there's one thing, one chapter that was really impactful, and still when you sat and thought, what is my best moment in this book? What is the best chapter? Share whatever you feel is relevant so that we can really
Okay.
dive in, and then I'll ask questions if you don't mind in between this.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the premise of the book. I'm 59, lived a long life, made some really poor decisions, made some great decisions. But one thing I've learned along the way is a lot of people feel that persuasion and being able to be heard and not be invisible is all about the verbs you use, the language that you use. And we just talked about that a lot with the noun and verb. But the reality is, it's your presence that controls everything. Earlier in the podcast, Dwight, you talked about decisions being made before somebody opens their mouth. And psychologists call that thin slicing. So you're slicing out different things that a person does and you're using them to form a judgment. And this happens all the time. And the key to not being invisible is by controlling your presence. And what my book does is it talks about how to control your presence, how to notice those signals, how to put off positive signals for yourself, to understand what you trigger in someone else when you talk, because that's a big piece of it. Because remember, I may be talking to you from my viewpoint, but you're interpreting me through your 50 plus years of being alive, right? So, two different angles entirely. And it talks about what we anchor on. And pricing is always a big thing. If we go to buy a car, we anchor on the price. $30,000. Oh my God, that's so much. And by understanding how we trigger something and how our brain anchors on something specific is 90% of the way to not being invisible anymore because you're starting to control that in your environment. I'll give you a great example. I was on a Zoom call with a couple of prospects the other day. It was a male and female. And the female had a pair of glasses and earrings that matched. I had never seen that before. It's almost like they made them in the same factory. It's so cool. So I said to the woman on there, I said, those eyeglasses are amazing. I love the way they match your earrings. And I was being very genuine, very sincere. Immediately, she started twirling her wedding ring, pulling it off, putting it back on, fidgeting, looking down at it. I triggered something. So my compliment made her either remind herself about her marriage or maybe she was showing me she was married, but it was all very unconscious. Most people would ignore that. But if you can catch those moments and then redirect it, it's amazing how you can start to guide a conversation and keep the other person safe and comfortable and trusted and well respected, and how much your communication will blossom because of that. So when I reframed it and took her in a different direction, the conversation went swimmingly and we did great and we wound up doing business together. But communication is all about recognizing those moments. Words are a smidgen of the communication process. When you can master the rest of that, you can control any room you walk into. And when I say control, I don't mean dominate it. I mean you can be aware of everyone and their feelings and their emotions, and you can guide them and you can help them understand yours. It all becomes a flow between people. And my book talks about how to do that one on one. It talks about how to do it in a room. It talks about how to do it when there's absolute chaos everywhere. It talks about how to do it at home with your kids, as well as in an important meeting with your boss. And it's all done in a simple framework called STRATA. It's an acronym. And as you work your way through the levels of STRATA, you will be astounded at how much more fluent you become, how much more memorable you become, and how you go from being unseen to unforgettable.
That's wow, so powerful. To have this ability to get to the place where Jake is talking about, you can walk into the room and you could be wearing everybody wearing suits and you're wearing board shorts and a muscle shirt and a ball cap, right? You're going to attract the center of the room because of your unique visual differences. But wouldn't you love to be that person that walks into the room that it's effectively touched people and they're in a group of five, six people in the corner and one person's experienced the teachings of Jake or myself and they go, oh my gosh, it's Jake. Guys, girls, this is blah, blah. Let's, we got to go talk to Jake. You commanded the room through affection of one person that you touched. Maybe it was just one little thing, but you commanded their respect, and they now want to be, I guess, in some ways, a disciple of Jake. And I'm not meaning that in a disrespectful way at all, right? But they want to be somebody that is in your sphere. How many of you listening
Yeah.
or watching want to be that person? And you say to yourself throughout your whole life, oh, I'd rather just hide in the corner. When in reality, you're thirsty for attention, thirsty for recognition and acknowledgement. I'm not saying you utilize Jake stuff to create a cult or groupies. I'm saying utilize it so that you're the person that walks in a room or are on a conversation with somebody where they literally, as soon as they see your face pop up on video or you walk into the room, they smile. Instant reaction to their body and what you have set the table for. Their expectations of you have expectations for me. I want to have people have expectations of me that I'm kind, compassionate, but I'm also blunt. That if they
Yeah.
come and ask me a question, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I'm also going to know based on the room. I read the room, as you mentioned. You look at the room and you think to yourself, this isn't the right time. I'm seeing that person's like this person's like that. Maybe they just had a big lunch. I got to think about all that stuff, and they had too many
Yeah.
carbs, and now they're in the carb zone, and they're ready to have a nap. You gotta, that's all part of being in the room, right?
Yeah, and the other piece of this, Dwight, is it's not just a book to use in business. I do a chapter on relationships because having been divorced myself, I look at if I would have applied my strata to that, you can see where a marriage can go astray. Signals are missed, things you triggered are left go. You anchored on the fact that you no longer have fun together. You don't no longer transfer emotion. So you look at those little things, and a lot of times, and I'm not making a broad sweeping statement, but a lot of times a divorce is nothing more than a ton of signals and triggers that have been missed and reframes that never happened. And, I'm married right now to the greatest woman on the planet, but the reason that it's that way is because we don't do this anymore. We talk about signals. If something triggered us, we talk about what triggered us. So we always have that open conversation. But I dedicate a chapter in the book to relationships because this communication method isn't just for business. It's for, if you're having a son or daughter that's acting out or your relationship's on the rocks, this methodology works equally well there as it does in a business environment.
Life relationships. That's whether it's individual or part of a group. It teaches you those life skills to interact on an individual basis, which now compounds to three, four people, to a large group. If you can command attention from one individual and work on your wordsmithing, that behavioral connection, and just being the best version of who you can be with one person. Just imagine the impact people that are listening, watching on a group of people. So I appreciate you ensuring people realize that this is for individuals. I personally automatically knew that, but some people listening might not and
Yeah.
think that because I get people that'll say, "Oh, this your podcast is all about business." It's far from it. Yes, I highlight people's businesses, but it's always about the people. It's always
Yeah.
about that human connection that I really want to bring out of people. So I'm sorry that you believe it's all about business. Or they say, "Oh, you're in the finance world. It's all about finance." Far from it. I
Yeah.
bet you haven't had a dozen people on that are about finance, right? And even then, those
Yep.
finance people, it's about the human connection. It's about the
Yeah.
relationships. It's about wordsmithing. So I really appreciate that. Did you want to talk a little bit? We got maybe about 15 minutes left.
Okay.
Did you want to talk more and break down the strata method? Is
Yeah,
that
sure.
something that you'd like to do? I'd
Yeah.
appreciate that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So strata, the first letter in strata, S, stands for signal. So what signal am I putting off and what signal am I picking up from someone else? So in other words, am I coming in angry? Am I coming in urgent? Am I coming in happy? And how are they? Are they coming in the same way? So the first thing is recognizing signals. The second is recognizing triggers. So if I say something to somebody and they have an adverse reaction to it, understanding that typically that adverse reaction isn't about me. It's about the 10 other people that I remind them of. It's about a dad or a mom that said something negative when they were growing up. So it's understanding what has been triggered in the other person. And in the case of the woman I was talking about, I triggered something that guided her to her wedding ring. Triggers aren't bad. They're actually a revelation and they're giving me a place to start and form a bond. The third piece is the reframe. So once I've triggered something, how can I reframe it to make sure that it hits in a level that they're going to understand? So I'm not changing the reality, I'm giving them permission to think about other options. So we have trigger, single signal, trigger, reframe. The third one is anchor. We often think when we're in a conversation that if we just say something really like philosophical, a real aha moment, it will just stick with people forever. But it doesn't. We need a way to anchor that thought with those people. And usually anchoring is emotional, it needs reinforcement to stick. So we talk in the book about how to anchor the thought that you had with the other person so that they remember it. Once you anchor it, then you need to transfer it. So we often talk about, Dwight, here's why this is a good idea for you. But just by saying it's a good idea doesn't mean you're going to think it's a good idea. So my job is to figure out how to make it feel like your idea so you defend it and adopt it. And the true longevity of an idea is not you and me in the moment. It's how long do you carry that idea after we leave this moment? So do you talk about it? Do you adopt my terminology? Do you defend it if somebody has a problem with it? That's when you know you've transferred the information to someone else. And the last piece is asking for commitment. What action are you going to ask them to take as a result of your conversation? So I've recognized the signal. I've realized the trigger. I've reframed their ability to think about something. I've anchored them to the concept. I make the idea theirs. And then I ask them to take action. Now, for a listener, this may sound like, oh my God, this is complicated and it's a long thing. But as you read the book and as you go through the examples, you're going to find out this happens in seconds, not minutes, not hours, seconds. And as soon as you start to be able to control that process, or at least become more acutely aware of it, your communication dynamics will change. For instance, people think they're not seen because somebody doesn't listen to them. Well, if I recognize their signals and triggers, That's a strong listening action, right? If a person feels unseen because people don't listen to them, they'll get taught how to anchor what they're saying to other people and how they think about things. They'll understand how to make their own ideas somebody else's ideas. So somebody else will say, "Oh my God, Jake, the way you said that was amazing. I can't wait to talk to somebody else about that." And then last but not least, how do you get somebody to take action on what you just talked about? So Strata takes you through that process, builds your awareness of each step of the way. And the thing that I've heard from the beta reader group that I had go through it, I had probably 50 people read it before I sent it for final manuscript. And the one thing I heard everybody say, almost to a person, is now that I see these things, I can't unsee it. Now I see it everywhere in every conversation that I have. So it's that easy. It's just being made aware and then working on how to control it.
That's awesome. Fantastic. Like great explanation. And really, how can you put something back in the can once it's been opened? And why would
Right.
you why would you
Yeah.
want to?
You can't
People
unring the
listen.
bell.
Yeah, you cannot ring the bell. And anybody listening and watching this, you feel any uncomfortableness, that's a good thing. That's your body signaling that it wants change. If you're
Yeah.
uncomfortable, now if this whole conversation's done nothing to you, you're stuck on the hamster wheel, and that's your right and choice. But I seriously doubt anybody listening or watching feels that way, because that's not what my show attracts. It attracts people that want to change. Maybe they listened to an episode a year ago and it triggered something, and then they squelched it back down, or they had their societal pressures, or their group of five, right? Because we
Yeah.
hang out with associations that aren't necessarily healthy. Maybe you're
Yeah.
back again. Maybe you're that person that hasn't been here and you want a little bit more of a poke. I'm poking you right now. I'm poking the bear. I want you to look at your life and realize you're more than you ever believed you could possibly be. That no success, and this is, stuck record. You never are going to get successful living in your comfort zone. You must live outside it. And Jake's book, though I haven't been privy to it, would be something that is going to help you, right? Reframing out of all of that. I love reframing. I'm not saying the rest isn't powerful, but if you can reframe using
Nothing like a
wordsmithing,
good reframe.
oh, if you can reframe somebody and you can make them go, whoa, and then see their emotional behavior to the reframe and then communicate about that, you're going to draw people in, and
Yeah.
you're going to repel those that aren't meant to be part of your sphere, that are stuck. But don't ever disparage those people. You never know, maybe they're a year ago that you poke, now they come back, poke, maybe that next poke is like, whoa, it's time for me to get, like my dad would say, poop or get off the pot, right? Like
Yeah.
quit hogging the bathroom when we had one of them growing. Right. Anyway, humor is always a good thing. I'm not trying to take away from the seriousness of it, but one of the things as we're talking about this, you're understanding presence, being able to articulate presence is so much more workable, I believe, or it needs to be dealt with. Because if it's based on performance, you can tell people, you can give them quotas, you can say you're not going to get a bonus, you're not going to do that, you're not going to do this. But if they can tie their presence into that, their performance increases, correct?
Correct.
So presence always trumps performance.
I would say presence is the first thing and the most influential piece of who you are because people see and react that they react to that more than anything you say or do. So your initial presence is everything. And Strata talks about that. That's the signal piece. That speaks volumes because in reality, we don't convince anybody of anything. They simply decide it was their idea. So, how we get them from here's my idea to letting them decide it's their idea is really the key to solid communication. But presence decides whether they're even going to listen to the first word you say or not.
And Wow, people, can you imagine if you can grasp both? You can take you're a great performer right now, and you get the odd compliment, and but yet you're really not showcased. And your business has employee of the month, or they have employee of the year, or there's trophies given out. Lots of corporations, lots of businesses do that. Why? That person may not have even as good as metrics as you, but they have presence. They have the
Yep.
ability to be very articulate. They have the ability to change the emotion, the energy level in a one-on-one conversation, in a group conversation, in a room conversation. Presence, in my experience, to what Jake's talking about and has become one of his biggest missions, is the key to lasting relationship success. And this isn't about just business. I'm talking relationship success, as Jake mentioned, with your significant others, and how my relationship was lack of presence, lack of relationship connection, reframing a society that said this is the expectations of your wife, and having family pushing that on them when they didn't grow up that way, not being aware enough that that pressure wasn't fair to our relationship and was one of many things that was a catalyst to making our marriage not function. Could you imagine you're having issues with your relationship with your significant other, your business partner? Maybe it's your manager at work in your career. Maybe you're a boss and you're not getting the results out of your people. Their production is okay, but it could be better, and you're not sure why. And you're the type of person that yells at them, or that harsh memo. This is your expectation. You're not present. You're not present. Your presence is affecting everything in your lives. Your little kids, if you have little children, because I have young audience too that listen to this, or you haven't had kids yet. This is literally going to be an instructional manual for you to connect, to understand, to be present. Don't discount this if you've listened to this whole podcast and not, pay it forward to yourself. It's not pay it forward after you read it, pay it forward to others, but pay it forward to yourself that you're worth spending that little amount of money. And it's going to be weird for me to bring this up, Jake, but people complain, well, books cost this, books cost that. You better not be that person that's going to Starbucks 3, 4 times a week buying a $7 drink. What has that done for you? Gives you a sugar high, sugar low. Maybe it tasted good and you got a dopamine hit. Jake's book's going to be an investment that's going to be a hit on your emotional well-being and growth for the rest of your life, in my honest opinion. And I can say that with all confidence because Jake is a different version of me, and he's a different version. I'm a different version of him. And together, we're going out and spreading the word to make a difference and to change people's lives. So I don't need to read the book to know it's going to impact, because Jake has a presence, has the ability to educate and train and communicate in a very concise way. Great storyteller. Can you imagine what's in the book? Ask yourself that. I hope it sits in your mindset and you get the book once it's released on December 3rd. I
Yep.
believe that was the new date. And I am going to be your biggest proponent. I will make sure I even share it on social.
Thank you.
Tag me, whatever. I'll
I will.
reshare, whatever. We'll make sure that the algorithms, though, are going to only show so many. All it needs to show is have one buy the book and it changed their lives, even if you or I never know.
Exactly.
The universe is going to bring people to your book, brother. I'm positive of it. And again, we're going to wrap up the show here. There were some other things that I wanted to discuss, but you know what, people, we're going to leave you wanting more. Go get the book, right? Spend that
Yep.
effort. Spend that effort. Jake, last question, brother. If you
Sure.
could leave our listeners with one last message, something that it proves it's always worth giving a heck and never giving up, what would that message be, Jake?
The message would be if you really want to make an impact on other people, listen more.
Wow,
When
it's
somebody gets
simple.
to talk about themselves, it's has been proven time and again. When people get to talk about themselves, they release the same neurotransmitters that get released when you eat a chocolate brownie. Same feelings, same chemicals all going out. You want to make somebody feel good and make them want to talk to you and want to listen to you? Listen first.
Yeah, you ever had that question asked to you, what would you tell your younger self?
Yeah,
Have you
shut
ever
up
had
and
that?
listen. Yeah, shut
I
up and
tell
listen.
people, and I've had people on, I've been on their shows or I've been asked at different events that I've been at, and people will say, well, what do you mean? You tell your younger self to listen more and talk less, because our society has been taught that our thought process, our integrated response into what that person is saying is more important than what they're saying. So our brain is going, hurry up and shut up so I can share my truth, my epiphany,
Right.
why my idea is better than what you're saying. And then you've already disrespected that person by not listening. And it is a learned skill. I'd say one of the best things that's
It
helped me,
is.
Jake. I don't know if it's helped you with your show. At the end of the day, listening has gotten better for me. 270 episodes later, I've become better at articulating my thought process down on paper to ask better questions, to have a better flow. But it's taught me to be a better listener because I'm so afraid of missing something that can be impactful for
Yeah.
me. And if it's impactful for me, I'm going to ask a great follow-up question. Or, you know what I mean? Or the energy I'm exhuming for those listening or watching is different.
Yeah.
Listening is so underutilized because the society says that you need to be in reaction mode. Stick in that reaction mode. Listen
Yeah.
to Jake, but really don't listen to him. React in your brain to the moment he stops so you can interject. And I'm not perfect at it, but
Oh,
I work at
I'm
it.
not either. I
Uh,
advocate for it all the time, but I'm far from perfect.
But the sweet thing about that is, Jake, is you're always on the climb, brother. You're always evolving by admitting that you're not perfect at it. And
Yeah.
and that it tells me as your friend, which I believe we are,
I
you
believe we
know,
are
that
too.
that at the end of the day, you're always going to be refreshing conversation. You're always going to be elevating yourself to elevate others. And one of those key things is you're always going to work on being that good listener, to listen to what people are saying. You can still in your mindset, people have in your back of your mind going, okay, when Jake's done talking, this is where I see the flow going. Or this is, oh, he brought up a good thing. So how I've done it, you can't always do this if you're standing face to face, you just meet somebody. But when I'm sitting here, people have asked me, and I forgot to remind you, I jot down notes, right? As we're talking, it might be just one word so that I can go back to listening to Jake. But that was important. So then when you're done, it's a quick look. Oh, okay. Right. So you can't always do that. But if you're somebody that is, you don't want to lose that aha moment, just write down a bullet point. Sorry about that. Just reminding me of an appointment. For those listening or watching, that's life, right? I have to live by a schedule just like everybody else.
You bet.
And anyway, Jake, it's been a true privilege to have you on again. What's the best way people can reach out to you? And then I'm going to wrap up the show.
Sure, they can find me on LinkedIn. I'm Jake Stahl on LinkedIn. There's a lot of Jake Stahls on there, so I'm the CEO of Orchestrate. That's the best way to find me. You can get my book, which is coming out soon, which is Own the Room: How to Communicate to Be Seen, Heard, and Respected. And if you're so inclined on social media, you can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube. I am Jake the Mind Mechanic on those.
Right on. I will ensure that this stuff is within the show notes. For those new
Thank
to the
you.
Give a Heck podcast, you're welcome. Go to giveaheck.com at the top. You may not have been on my site. You probably haven't been on my site in a long time. I totally had it redone last year. It's not even anywhere near the same. I wanted to attract people and redeveloped it based on my brand and presence. So I'll make sure that when people go on the giveaheck.com, go to the top, it says podcast, just click on it. You will see a plethora of information. You'll see Jake's picture as well as lots of other podcast episodes, but click on Jake's picture. You'll have detailed show notes, all the links to his social media. It'll have chapter summaries and it'll have the full unedited transcript. And why do I do that? Because some people like to go in and read. You'd be shocked. And the chapter summaries will help you jump to a specific section of something that maybe while you're driving right now, you can't remember. Oh, that was 20 minutes ago. That was 30 minutes ago. So I want to make it impactful that our time together sticks and make sure that you have the ability to find it and not going, well, I don't want to listen to that whole podcast again, right? Maybe there's just one good thing, and
Right.
that's okay. One thing's better than zero,
Yeah,
right?
for
So,
sure. One other thing, Dwight, just so
yeah,
people
go ahead.
know, I had a podcast for a while called Lead Gen Reboot, but it's getting renamed and it gets relaunched next week. The podcast will be called Own the Room with Jake Stahl. So if they want to listen to that podcast, it will be out there.
Or if they want to be a guest.
Sure, if you want to be a guest, Dwight, I would love to have you on. I will send you a link and we'll get you on ASAP. That would be
And,
awesome.
and
Love to have you on.
I actually had a section here to talk about lead gen reboot, but then I was looking up some stuff and I noticed a lull, and I thought, maybe I won't bring that up. So thank you for bringing that up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, they can find Lead Gen Reboot right now. It's on Apple Podcast and Spotify, but it's getting renamed to Own the Room. So there's going to be a name change that takes place.
When that launches, let me know. I'll
I
share
will.
it too. I
Okay, cool.
I don't. Nobody's competition to one another. We're
Oh,
just a
I
support
agree.
network to uplift one another, right?
But I am sending you a link for you to
I
schedule, and you better
I
schedule a time to be on my show.
I will, brother. I
Okay,
will.
good.
Any other last fine comments before
That's
I
it.
wrap up our beautiful conversation, brother?
You
Okay.
got it.
Thanks again, Jake.
Thank you,
So
Dwight.
you're welcome. My final message, something that I introduced here recently, it's called the Give a Heck Spirit. Before we close, remember this: your voice matters, your presence is powerful, and your ability to connect is a skill worth mastering. Whether you're leading a team, building a business, or simply trying to be heard, give a heck. Give it with intention, because when you show up with clarity and courage, you do not just lead, you transform. This has been the wonderful, amazing conversation with Jake Stahl, a master of presence, a challenger of convention, and a trusted guide for anyone ready to communicate with clarity and lead with confidence. If this conversation moved you, share it with somebody who wants to be seen, heard, and respected in their own life. Let them know it is never too late to shift how they show up and take ownership of their voice. If this episode resonated, subscribe to the podcast and hit subscribe on YouTube as well. Leave a review or rating in your favorite app. Like, comment, share this on social media. This message needs to get out there. You could be the saving grace and the growth for that person that's stuck. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there by sharing this episode. Every review and share also amplifies, as mentioned, voices like Jake's and reminds others that their message is worth believing in. Until next time, keep giving a heck about your life. And remember, no matter what stage of life you're at, it's never too late to give a heck.
Thank you for taking time out of your day and listening to Give a Heck. If you find value, I'd appreciate you sharing with your friends and family so they too can learn how to live life on purpose, not by accident. So you do not miss the next episode, please subscribe on your favorite podcast platform and please also post a review. I look forward to reading your comments. This has been Dwight Heck. If you want to check out other podcast episodes or today's show notes, please check out my website, giveaheck.com. And until next time, together let us all strive to give a heck.